Hello and welcome to ExamRevision Saturday sessions. In today's session, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at another sample answer for our geoecology section. And we're going again to be looking at the tropical rainforest biome. So now at this stage, we have looked at the characteristics of a biome. We've also looked at adaptations with animals and plants within the biome. So the final thing that we've got to look at here is in terms of human interaction on a tropical rainforest biome. So again, essentially what we're going to be looking at here is how humans have used and often abused the tropical rainforest biome, specifically looking at the Amazon rainforest in a bit of detail. So again, we'll be looking at the marking scheme, how we go about structuring our answer in terms of what we need to have in it, and then also looking at a sample answer and looking at the amount of points we're going to have to make and the structure we're going to have to put onto our essay. So all of that is going to be covered essentially in the following video, very similar to the previous videos that I have done. So again, it's important to look at the layout of the exam, of the Leaving Cert Geography exam, so that we have a fair idea in our heads before we go into the paper in terms of what we need to do and the timings that we need to be aware of before undertaking the Leaving Cert exam. So as we can see again, our short questions, our physical geography, our regional geography, and then it's also our elective, depending whether you're doing economic or human. They are all worth the same amount of marks and all worth the same amount of percentage within the Leaving Cert Geography paper. You'll also be spending half an hour on each of those sections. And in each of those sections, you'll be picking one question from a possible choice of three. And within each of those questions, there'll be an A, B, and C part. The A part will be kind of shorter questions, and then your B and C part will be your essay questions. So you'll want to be spending about 5 minutes on your A part, and then you'll want to spend about 12 and a half minutes on each of the B and C parts. Now, with the fact that COVID happened and that there has been a kind of change to the choice on the Leaving Cert exam, in 2024, you will have extra choice on the exam, which basically will allow you to leave out a section and do an extra question from another section if you so wish. So for example, you could leave out a regional geography question and do an extra physical geography question if you so wanted. And that would just mean that you're doing two physical geography questions, so that'd be 160 marks from the physical geography section, and then that'd be worth 32%. You'd be spending an hour on the physical geography section rather than half an hour. But that's only if you're leaving a section out. If you're going to do it the normal way, well, then you're going to have a situation where you're going to be looking at each of these sections, and that's the amount of time you'll be putting into each of them. Now, there is a little bit of a difference with the geoecology section in terms of, yes, it's worth 80 marks as well, worth 16% of the overall paper. However, it is different in terms of, yes, you'll have to choose one question from a choice of three, but each of the questions will be one essay question worth 80 marks. So there won't be an A, B, and C part to it. Because it's a longer essay and because we don't have that A, B, C sort of layout, we do get an extra bit of time for this essay. So you will be allowed about 40 minutes to put towards this particular essay to ensure that you're going to have enough time to get the detail in your answer and to also have the structure correct. So that's 10 minutes more than any of the other sections. So this is really quite an important section. That's why we're focusing in on it on the Saturday sessions. That will give you 2 hours and 40 minutes total of writing time. As I've said previously in the other videos, you also have 10 minutes reading time. And that 10 minutes reading time is so important because it will allow you to read through the questions, to pick which ones you're going to do, which is very, very important, to pick ones that are going to suit you, the best ones that are going to suit you. And then also, it's going to give you time to read the questions properly so that you're not making mistakes then when you're writing your answers. Because so many people misread the question, don't read it correctly, and therefore do not answer the question correctly as it's seen in front of them. And that'll be very important for the geoecology section also. So that will give you, when you include all the time and all the marks, Okay, that'll bring you to 400 marks. However, you do have your field study that you'll be completing in class time. That'll be worth 100 marks, which is going to be 20%. So again, that's a very, very important section for you. So ensure that you are focusing in on that field study and that you're doing it to the best of your ability, follow your teacher's instructions to get as close to 20% for that section. That brings us then to a total of 500 marks for the Leaving Cert Geography paper, broken down as you can see it. And it's just helpful to know that before you go into the exam so that you know exactly how much each section is worth as you're attempting to do them. So as I said, the section that we're focusing in on is our geoecology section, our options section. And we're focusing in on questions 16, 17, and 18. So again, it's important that you know that that's the section that you're going to have to go to in terms of looking at that question, because sometimes you can waste time by not knowing what section or where you're supposed to be going to, but you know that you've got to go to questions 16, 17, 18 when it comes to your geoecology section. So it's important to have that in your heads before you go into the exam. Now, in general, questions 16 and 17 are normally the soil questions, and question 18 would be your biome question. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they're a bit more mixed up than that. Sometimes there could be even 2 biome questions rather than just 1. But in general, it has been 1 biome question with 2 soils questions. So just to have that in your head before you go into the exam, okay, so that you know what to expect and what is going to be coming up in terms of the exam. So you're not wasting time going to the other option sections and wasting your time reading questions that you don't need to be reading when you need to go to questions 16, 17, 18 straight away. In terms of the marking scheme, again, this is super important that we do know the way that the marking scheme works for this particular section. So depending on what way the question is asked, you could be doing 3 sections or 4 sections. And these sections are called, on the marking scheme, aspects. So if you're doing 3 aspects, you will be marked at 20 marks per aspect or per section. And that's broken down into the following. You get 4 marks for identifying the aspect, okay? And within that section then, you are going to have to put in 8 SRPs. So well-developed points, statistical pieces of information or facts that are going to get you the marks that you're going to need for that section. That brings you then, with each SRP worth 2 marks, to 20 marks per section. 4 marks for identifying that aspect, 8 by 2 is 16 for your SRPs, so 20 marks. 3 by 20 is 60. Then the leftover marks will go for your overall coherence. So 20 marks for your overall coherence would be included there. Your overall coherence is if you have a good structure on your answer, if you have developed your answer well, you've answered the question that has been asked, you've got enough SRPs in your answer, and that you have 3, or it depends, 4, if that's what you're doing, 3 well-defined aspects that the examiner can follow easily. You could also do, okay, depending on the way the question is asked, 4 aspects or 4 sections, and these will be marked at 15 marks each. You'll get 3 marks for identifying the aspect, and then you'll have an overall discussion of 6 SRPs per section. 6 by 12 gives you, or 6 by 2 gives you 12, which means that that'd be 15 marks, and 4 by 15 is 60. And then again, you've got your overall coherence marks, which are worth 20 marks. So that gives you your total then of 80. So again, it's so important that you are aware of the different ways that your essay could be marked, and that you have that marking scheme in your head before you go into the exam. Being aware of this is important because the question could specifically ask you to only do 3 aspects, or it could ask you to do 4 aspects, or it could be very open-ended and it could allow you to decide yourself what way you want to go about it. Do you want to do 3 aspects or do you want to do 4 aspects, which would be ideal for you because you wouldn't be tied to one or the other. Now, for the benefit of us doing this video, we're going to focus on a question that is 4 aspects. The reason for that is that we'll have 4 topics covered within this question, or 4 aspects covered within this question rather than just 3. And also within the sample answer that I'm going to show you, there's going to be more than 6 SRPs per section. So there'll be more than enough, probably be about 8 SRPs per section, which will cover you for the 3 aspects as well. So all you'd have to do is just leave out one of these sections for the 3 aspects question, and you'll be still covered. So we're going to be looking at the 4 aspects at 15 marks each. Identifying the aspect will give us 3 marks. We'll get our 6 SRPs, get the remaining 12 marks, and then we'll have our 20 overall coherence. So each aspect, 3 marks per name, 6 SRPs at 2 marks each then for our 4 aspects, just to have that in our head as we go through this sample answer. As before, the ranked in order of priority, we've got 4 characteristics of biome, human interaction with biome, and then we've got plants and animals adaptations. So human interaction, there number 2, is what we're going to be focusing in on this video. We're not as worried about the soils. They'll be something that you might be studying in class yourselves, and you can do if you want. But if we're going to answer one question from this particular section, the geoecology section, I like to focus on the biome because it's more interesting, there's more to talk about, and it is in general a good question to be focusing in on. So there are other questions like development of soils, factors influencing soil development, and the effect of human activities on soil. But for the purpose of this video, and the videos that I've already done, we're not really focusing on question 4, 5, and 6 on the soils. We're focusing on these other ones here. We're focusing on plants and animal adaptations, human interaction, the 4 characteristics of biome. And the one I'm going to be talking about in this video is going to be getting into human interaction with a biome. And as you can see, this is a very common question that comes up quite a bit. You can see in previous years that it's come up 4 times in the last number of years, the last 10 years, 9 or 10 years. So therefore, it is a very common question and one that you're going to have to be prepared for in case it does come up on your Leaving Cert paper. As we can see, those are 3 particular geoecology questions or topics that can come up. So we can have adaptation of plants and animals in the biome, 4 characteristics of biome as well. But the one that we're focusing in on here is going to be human interaction with a biome. So that's what we're going to be focusing in on here, right here today. So we'll get straight into it now and start looking at a sample answer. So the question that we're looking at here in this particular one is going to be, biomes are altered by human activities, discuss. Okay, so 80 mark question that came up last year, okay, in the 2023 Leaving Cert paper. Now, you might think that, okay, this came up last year, a human activities question, so it won't come up in 2024. Now, it might make it less likely, but it could still come up 2 years in a row. So we could still see it on Leaving Cert paper 2024. So we still need to be prepared in that eventuality in case it were to happen. So this is the question we're essentially going to be looking at today. Again, we need to look at the marking scheme. This is the way it's going to be marked. 3 aspects or 4 aspects. We've run through this already, okay? But for the purpose of today's question, we're going to be looking at it in terms of 4 aspects. So the question, as we've seen before, something similar, discuss how human biomes are altered by human activity, 80 mark question. And again, this is a nice question for us to come up because it's open-ended. If you wanted to do 3 aspects, you could, because it's not specifying that you have to do 4 or 3. So it's open to you. You can do 3 or 4. But for the purpose of this, we're going to do 4 aspects. And there's going to be more for us to talk about anyway if we do 4 aspects. Again, with any of these geoecology questions, you always start with discussing what biome you're actually studying. So you want to say that you're studying the tropical rainforest biome, and that the one that you're focusing in on is the Amazon rainforest biome, mainly found in Brazil, okay? Because Brazil is a good area for us to look at because a lot of us would do Brazil in terms of our regional studies. So it's a good one to kind of focus in on. So again, we have our aspect 1. So we start that our title, aspect 1, and we're going to start with deforestation here. First of all, so this is the first ways that humans are going to alter our biome. So we focus in on this starting off. So we put our title in. Again, all the points I'm making here are numbered. You won't have to do that in the exam. This is just for the benefit to show you all the different SRPs that we're making here and show where we're getting the marks. But for your own essay in the exam, you will just write it in essay format and paragraph format, so you won't have to put all of this, the numbers in. It's better for your overall coherence if you don't do it in that way. So put it in normal essay format. But if you're doing a sample answer yourselves, you're writing something like this, even for your 30-mark essays, writing down or numbering all your SRPs that you think you've made is a good way to practice writing questions. So number 1, we're having examples. So again, we get 2 SRPs in the marking scheme for writing in examples. So an example of deforestation is commercial logging. And commercial logging is basically people coming in, cutting down trees, especially hardwoods, things like that, and selling them on. So mahogany and teak are going to be the 2 types of trees that we're focusing on here in this second point. Logging activities are poorly controlled in Brazil, and the industry is run by people who care more for profit than the environment. Most loggers are only looking to cut down valuable hardwood trees such as mahogany, ebony saws, and teak, as these trees can be worth up to 15,000 euros each in the markets. So again, we're backing up the point that we're making, putting in bits of facts and statistical piece of information like that 15,000 euro, okay, which backs up what we're saying and shows the examiner that we know what we're talking about. 80% illegal. So the third point is that in Brazil, the timber industry raises about 3.5% of the country's GNP, or gross national product, but 80% of this logging is illegal, since there are very few controls for illegal loggers. The Amazon rainforest is being depleted at 30 million cubic meters of timber a year due to logging. This results in a high rate of damage to the environment. So although there are strict restrictions on the ways the amount of trees that can be cut down, most of the trees that are cut down in the rainforest, unfortunately, are illegal. This, of course, has a massive impact on climate change. So there have also been high levels of wastage, since many low-value trees have been cut down to gain access to the few mahogany trees in the native forest. This has resulted in a loss of species and wide-scale extinctions. For example, the Javan tiger. So again, we're giving examples here to back up what we're saying and ensuring that we're getting those SRPs in. In terms of lattice soils, the big impact of deforestation is on the soils. This is since the lattice soils of the rainforest are very dependent on tree cover. As a result of removing trees through logging, the soils get leached, and within a few years, they turn into infertile brick stone. Without the soils, the damage that is caused to them is irreversible. So there's no way of fixing the soils or making it better. They're lost forever. Point 6 is about stored carbon. Furthermore, the rainforest absorbs and stores carbon in its trees and soil. When the trees are cut down due to logging, the carbon is released as carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas that is causing climate change. So that'll be the first aspect or section that we will be talking about in terms of human activities and how to alter the biomes. And that first aspect, deforestation, you've definitely got 6 SRPs, if not more, in there, and it's a well-structured answer. So now what you do is you skip your line, you write in aspect 2 title, and we begin our second aspect. Our second aspect that we're going to focus in on is going to be government schemes. And again, we're putting in an example, the second example that we're allowed to get marks for within the marking scheme. And our example of a government scheme is dam construction, and this is the Curry Dam, okay, in Brazil. So let's get into it. The NIC. So point 2, the rainforest is undergoing a lot of damage due to the rapid growth in the economic development of Brazil. More and more people are also living and destroying the biome due to government policies. Since Brazil is a newly industrialized country, meaning that it's growing hugely fast in terms of economy and jobs and things like that, and population, it has undergone rapid and expensive industrialization to keep up with this growth. So we've now got the government's debt. Government schemes such as import substitution, industrialization has resulted in Brazil being in a lot of debt. The government scheme to improve access to the rainforest, and they did this by building the Trans-Amazonian Highway, which is 5,300 kilometers long and has allowed major developments in the Amazon. And this has also led to greater links with other countries such as Peru and Colombia on the other side of the Amazon rainforest for Brazil as well. But again, this costs a lot of money, and it's something that the government have been involved in, and it's one of their policies or one of their schemes. We've also got Avianca Brazil. Avianca Brazil is Advanced Brazil, and it is a plan that has reached fruition. It was a plan from 2000 to 2020. It was made by the government that cost 30 billion euros. And its aim was to cover as much of the Amazon with highways, 10,000 kilometers. Now, this is still ongoing. So even though it finished in 2020, the scheme has continued. It's also aimed to cover it in power lines, with canals, with hydroelectric power dams, as many as possible, to create more jobs, electricity, and more resources for the country in itself. Also, there has been an issue with favelas in cities. So there has been big population growths in cities like Rio and also in Sao Paulo. And this has led to the development of favelas. These are areas that have terrible living conditions and have poor health care, sanitation, and water conditions. Favelas are an embarrassment, and therefore government has encouraged settlers to clear the forest and to settle in rural areas. So the government has basically been encouraging people to leave the cities, leave the favelas, basically giving them plots of land or rainforest and encouraging them then to cut them down, often through slash and burn techniques where you just cut down trees and burn whatever is left in order for them to clear land for maybe cattle ranching and stuff like that. So again, as you can see, the government causing issues themselves. And then 100 hectares. The government also encourages people to move to the region of the Amazon. Brasilia was made the capital of Brazil to encourage people to relocate. And Brasilia was only built in the 70s and 80s as a way of doing this and a way of moving people more to central Brazil towards the Amazon. Another was the government achieved this by granting settlers a 100-hectare plot of land. They gave them 6 months' salary and easy access to agricultural loans, which again led to a lot more deforestation, cutting down of trees due to this government scheme. So as you can see, the government in Brazil have not helped the situation in any way whatsoever. So that would be the points we're going to make about the second aspect. Again, we skip a line and we start our aspect 3 with a title. So our aspect 3 title is mining. And again, like in the previous answers, we are allowed SRPs for sketches, up to 2 sketches, labeled sketches that we can put into our answers. Again, you can put in a sketch of a soil, the O, A, B, and C horizons. You can also put the sketch in of the 4 different layers of the tropical rainforest, ensuring that you have them labeled. Once you have those sketches in, then you can get up to maybe 2 SRPs per each sketch. Okay, so 4 marks. So they're well worth doing, but leave this to the end of your answer rather than putting them in now here in aspect 3. You could also put in a sketch maybe of some of the examples of the deforestation that are happening, the trees, anything like that could potentially pick you up SRPs. So the first thing we're going to say here about mining is the crude and intrusive mining that takes place. So this is another human factor that interacts with the natural biome of the Amazon rainforest. The rainforest is undergoing severe damage due to crude and intrusive mining techniques. Third thing is timber and mineral wealth. The region is also not economically benefiting due to the exporting of profits that are made. The Brazilian government continues to open up the Brazilian rainforest to take advantage of its timber and mineral wealth. The profits made from the mining industry are used by the government to help pay off the debts that they have. So it's not even benefiting the local people in around the Amazon region. It's all servicing the Brazil government's debts. We've also got iron ore and copper. The Amazon rainforest in the past was rich in minerals. However, they used to be hard to extract. Now, with modern extraction methods, miners are coming in large numbers in search of metals like iron ore and copper. And these miners usually have a negative impact on the biome as they don't care about its long-term health. The fifth point is the 250,000 tons of copper. South Bahia alone has produced 250,000 tons of copper concentrate. But due to the very crude mining methods, there's been massive land clearance with no thoughts of preserving natural habitats. So they don't care about the trees, they don't care about the animals that live in the rainforest. It's all about just getting this natural resources. And the final point we're going to make about mining is cyanide. Sometimes while mining, water jets are used to wash the soil away. And when they are clearing the land, which results in huge soil erosion. Also, chemicals such as cyanide are used in many systems of mineral extraction to get concentrate of ore, and this is used, for example, in gold mining. So again, not good for the environment, not good for the tropical rainforest. So again, that would be our aspect 3. That would be our 6 SRPs made in terms of our mining. So we can then basically skip a line and put in our final aspect 4, put in the title, and try and get our 6 SRPs for that section. And our fourth section is probably the section that we'll have the most to write about, and that is our agriculture. Now, again, you've got your second SRP, okay, or allowance for a second sketch there. So again, I've gone through what sketches you can put in there. So that's what can be chosen. We then get into the points we want to make in terms of agriculture. First point we're going to make is cash crops like soybeans. So due to the growing population of Brazil, there is an increase in the demand for clearing land. This results in the clearing of the rainforest and causing destruction to delicate habitats and also the soil. As we've seen with the soil, it can be irreversible, some of the damage that is done to it. There has been huge land clearance of the rainforest by humans in many countries for cash crops. For example, soybeans, due to demand for cheap food worldwide and also for feeding livestock such as cattle. Livestock is the third point we're going to make. Large areas of land are being cleared for livestock grazing. Commercial and subsistence agriculture accounts now for 34% of deforestation in the Amazon basin. So again, we're using facts, statistics to back up the points that we're making, showing the examiner we know what we're talking about. Again, there has been a mass clearance of natural biomes since Brazil is the #1 exporter of cattle. Again, a good fact. with 165 million cattle. So again, good fact to put in there to back up what we're saying. The fourth point is 27% agriculture. 27% of Brazil's natural territory is used for agriculture. Since beef cattle don't thrive and the grass growth on lattice soils is poor, even more land is then cleared to feed them. This leads to further loss of the soil, and a lot of soil is washed into the Amazon River. So it really isn't a good, effective way of farming, of even cattle ranching. So it's very ineffective and inefficient. Fifth point is desertification. Another impact on the clearance of the land by humans is that the tropical rainforest biome receives a lot of convectional rainfall and relies on the trees to hold the water. But as the trees are all cleared, without the trees, the local water cycle is disrupted. And this can potentially result in desertification. This is the process by which fertile land becomes desert, typically as a result of deforestation or inappropriate agriculture. The final point we want to make is population pressure. Population pressure has also meant the traditional slash and burn system to clear land is unsuitable since the land doesn't have any time to recover. Slash and burn cultivation refers to when people remove the vegetation layer by hand and then burn the leftover scrub vegetation that wasn't of any use to them. After it's burned, the land is ploughed and it returns the charred nutrients back to the ground to act as a fertilizer. In 2019, 2,980 square kilometers of the Amazon rainforest was destroyed due to this slash and burn system. And that is the final point I would make then on the fourth aspect of agriculture. So we've now got our four different aspects or sections. We've got 6 SRPs made at least, if not more, per section. We can also put in our sketches at the end, label sketches at the end to ensure we pick up extra SRPs. And then that would be our question sorted. So we've done everything that we've been asked for. We've introduced the topic, told the examiner what we're looking at. We're looking at the rainforest biome, specifically the Amazon rainforest biome in Brazil. We've got the structure corrected. We've got 4 different aspects. We've got 6 SRPs at least on each particular section. It's all very clear because we've got titles on each of our aspects. So the examiner knows exactly what we're doing and can award us the marks easily and can give us then as well our OC marks because we've answered a question that has been asked and we've got an excellent structure. We also put in at the end our label diagrams, while throughout the answer, we've used specific facts, statistics, and examples to show the examiner we know what we're talking about and to back up what we're saying. So if you could recreate something like this in an exam, you would be hoping and should get full marks for this particular question. Again, this came up in the 2023 paper, so it's maybe less likely to come up in 2024 than maybe the other 2 questions, but has still got a chance of coming up. So again, we need to be prepared in case of this eventuality, because in the past, there has been situations where topics like this have come up 2 years in a row. But if you can use this in your studies, this should be very helpful for you. And even the way that this answer is written out in terms of the numbers system, it's a good way for you to write out your answers and practice. As I said, even for your 30-mark essays and the other sections of the paper, writing out your 15 SRPs, numbering them, can be a good way to ensure that you're getting enough SRPs into your answers. So I hope you found this question helpful. I hope you found this video helpful and that this would be useful for you preparing for your mocks or your Leaving Cert exam, that you can use this in order to hopefully get your full marks in your Leaving Cert exam question. Thanks for listening.